single greatest fear of most Americans is public speaking. As a matter of fact, it tops everything else, including dying in a fire. They say that most people, if given the choice, if they were having to speak at a funeral, they'd rather be in the box. So how do you feel about public speaking and giving a presentation in front of a group? If you had to rate yourself, say 1 to 10, 1 being worst, 10 being best, where would you put yourself? And the odds are you're watching this video, it's probably because you know you could be better, and we agree. The goal of this video is to help you become a better presenter. Public speaking and sales are actually the highest paid professions in the world. Becoming better at giving presentations is the single simplest and best way to accelerate your career and increase your income. And even if you don't have a plan to make a living as a public speaker, improving these skills in this one area will give you more confidence, it will give you a competitive advantage in your career, and it will increase your income. So what makes a great presentation? What are the elements of winning speeches? Well, in this session, we're going to share with you the keys to giving winning presentations. This video is filled with content that you won't find anywhere else on the web, and it contains insights and ideas that I've gleaned in over 15 years of giving presentations. After having watched this video, as you begin to master some of these simple techniques, you will be able to create compelling content for your speeches and deliver it with confidence and conviction. You'll be better at persuading an audience to take action on what you've said, and you'll be able to use the quick tips section in the video to immediately make your presentation stronger and more effective right away. I suggest that you watch the video several times so that you embed these concepts and they become second nature to you, because repetition is the mother of habit. You want these skills to become automatic. So here's the first concept. You want to be in the top 5% when it comes to giving a presentation, and here's why. We remember 2 types of speakers, the great ones and the horrible ones. And everyone else in the middle, we forget. So here's how it actually stacks up. Only 5% of people are actually great presenters. 85%, most of us, are average or mediocre. And then about 10% are just plain horrible. And so remember, we only remember the top and the bottom. You want to be in the top 5% because you're going to forget all the rest. So it's critical to your success to aim to get into the top 5%. Here are the 3 main elements that make up all great presentations. The right combination of content, style, and skill sets. Great content but poorly delivered is boring and forgettable. On the other hand, if you have great skills and no substance in your message, you won't get the results that you desire. So here's a true story to prove my point. I had met a man who had just signed up for a multi-level company. And now he was a horrible presenter. And he would just show up at my office without any appointment, and he would just hang out at the front desk. And he would just sit there and waste my staff's time. He never gave me one reason to consider his organization or its products. So I finally asked him, do you have a video or a CD, something that I can listen to or watch to kind of understand the product and what you're offering? So he gave me both. They had actually had a CD and a video. The audio CD was a recording of a doctor, and she was brilliant. She had some amazing content, but her delivery style was so boring that they probably just should have hired an actress to read the script and said, this is from an excerpt from. But you just wanted to turn it off. Great content, poorly delivered. That's what that was. People tune out if you're not interesting, no matter how good the content is. It's just a struggle. So now the video that they gave me was beautiful, great colors, the videography was excellent, but with nothing at all in the way of content. Good presentation, poor content. You need both content and delivery. So one important factor to understand today in giving winning presentations is this. The average attention span of an American 20 years ago was 20 minutes. You know what it is today? It's 9 seconds. It's the same as a goldfish. So as Sally Hogshead put it in her book, Fascinate, she says, the audience today having the same attention span as a goldfish, your job is to fascinate the goldfish. In other words, to grab and hold on to the attention of an audience. So how do you do that? Well, the answer, I believe, is to hold up a mirror. You need to talk about what interests them, which is their issues, their life, their goals. We all pay attention to the things that matter to us. And you have to make it clear why they should listen to you and why they should take action on what you've said. But it has to be based on their reasons, their motivations, not yours. You also need to understand something called pattern interrupt in order to keep and hold their attention. That means that you use specific techniques that jumpstart or shock the system to get them thinking, and it keeps your speech from being boring. You need to change it up from time to time throughout the presentation. You'll need to change your pitch, your tone, your cadence, or the speed of your delivery. That all keeps it fresh and interesting. And it's actually pretty easy once you get used to it. A friend of mine is considered to be America's foremost copywriter. His name is Joe Sugarman, and he wrote a book called Triggers. And he says there are certain words that trigger human behavior, and they provoke our flight or fight mechanism, or they let us feel safe and move forward. So there are certain words that appeal to us, like the word free, the word you, and you can study those things, but the book Triggers just points that out. So in your presentation, what is the one thing that you're trying to get across to your audience? This one thing should be the framework upon which everything else, the entire message, is built. Everything points back to this one thing. So just like in the phrase, all roads lead to Rome, your speech should have a central theme. And everything in that speech should be pointing back to the center or your core message. So how do you begin your speech? Well, at the start, you want to pause for just a moment before you begin. It gives you time to steady yourself and just to breathe. If you're nervous, it gives you time to just calm those nerves. Don't start with the thank yous and the thank you for being here and so wonderful. That's just nonsense. You want to start right off the bat. Suggest that it should be a startling statistic or a powerful, thought-provoking question. Something that will engage the audience. And you need to start strong and finish strong. Now, this doesn't happen by accident. The interesting thing is some people are good starters and other people are good finishers, and it shows in their speeches. It actually, in acting classes, it showed in your scenes. Some people would be great in the middle of a scene, but they couldn't start and they couldn't finish. Other people would start well and then kind of fizzle out. And other people would take a long time to get started, but they'd end very well. So your challenge is to figure out which one you are. And it normally will be the way you work in life. If you start projects fast but you don't finish those projects, you're a starter. And if you don't get off to it, you have a lot of ideas but you never really get off the dime and start, you're probably a finisher. Or if you like to dot every I and cross every T, that's probably you. But you can work on this. The best speeches also tell audiences little trivial things that they didn't know, things that are important, insights that they didn't have. So in respect to the first, you want to research some interesting data, some facts and figures, and you want to be able to use those statistics because they give credibility. We'll go over that in a moment. Authenticity is a key factor. And every so often you want to check in with your audience with phrases that engage them like, are you tracking with me? Does this make sense? Do you agree? How many people here agree? If you can raise your hand and get the audience, literally raise your hand and ask a question, does this make sense? And you'll see the hands start to go up. So things like, is this clear? Would you agree that this is important? These are all factors that re-engage the audience. Now I'm working on a book and I've been on it for about 3 years now. It's my second book. And what I've learned is that it's on communication. And I've learned that communication is like the Richter scale for earthquakes. Every single digit, every single scale ladder point is 10 times more powerful than the one prior. So in measuring earthquakes, the difference between a 5 and a 6, the 6 is 10 times more powerful than the 5. And the 7 is 10 times more powerful than a 6, meaning it's 100 times more powerful than a 5. So where are you in your communication skills? A 5, a 6? What if you came up one rung on that ladder? And these are the keys that are going to give you that ability. A long time ago, Aristotle said there were 3 keys to persuasion: logos, ethos, and pathos. Now those stood for logic, credibility, and passion or enthusiasm. So the trouble with that is that there are people who have tons of enthusiasm and passion who may lack credibility. Only about 1% of us actually have a natural ability to give all 3 in a public speech. So the rest of us, we kind of have to work on it. So what you need is, if you're an impassioned person, you need to develop the things that support credibility and trust. If you are a more logical thinker and more reasoning, then you probably have to work on passion and enthusiasm. Because if they don't hear that, you're not going to be able to persuade. All 3 are required to persuade someone. So this is the quick tips section of our video. And we're going to give you some things right now that you can use right away in your speeches and presentations. The first is that all speeches need to be in 3 parts: beginning, middle, and end. Now, typically you'll want to do either a problem, an analysis of that problem, and a solution proposed at the end. Or it may be something like, here's where we are today, and here's what we'd like to do. Here's what we see could be the benefit and where we need to go. And here are the things that would happen if we don't choose that path, and the benefits if we do. So it's kind of, again, 3 parts. That's the first one. The next one is to be able to use visual word pictures when talking to people, because it forces them up into their heart and mind to start considering what you're saying better. You want to use words, instead of saying, well, I just feel bothered by this, it's better to say, well, I felt like a whipped puppy that was tied up to a fence post, because they'll see that in their mind. The mind thinks in imagery, not typewritten words. So it's important to understand the concept of speaking in visual and emotional word pictures. The next one is this, that content is key. And as you write your content, it must follow a logical, progressive path that is reasonable to the mind. So you want to start with certain portions of your speech, and it's going to reasonably go to section 2 and then thereon. So it's important that the speech is not just a bunch of anecdotes, but it actually follows a progressive path to a conclusion. The next one is your eyes. When you're speaking to an audience, it is important, that when you're speaking to people, you're actually talking to one person at a time. That's it, no matter how many are in the room. So you want to be able to look at one person for a short amount of time, maybe an entire concept, and when you conclude that concept, then move on to someone else in the audience on the other side, and you want to kind of work the right and the left, and then maybe the center or the front and the back. But just keep it moving. You don't want to stay on someone so long that they become self-conscious. But you also don't want to dart around the room and just look too scattered. That's a distraction also. Now here's one that every speaker struggles with: uhs and ums. All of us do it. It's kind of something that we throw into our language to get us over while we're thinking. And if it's done right, it actually can be spellbinding, if it's done right. Too many of them, and it's just a distraction in itself. But you can say, and you'll actually hold them for a moment. I'll do that in conversation. But too many of those, and that's just a normal thing that people do, is we'll say 27 times in a speech, and it really does get old fast. So try to eliminate the uhs and the ums of not having content in your speech. The next thing is, and this is another one that many people struggle with, is what do I do with my hands? Do you put them behind your back? Do you put them on your hips? Do you put them in your pockets? And here's kind of the general consensus on that. Behind the backs is a really bad idea. It looks a little bit militaristic. You look kind of like the military guy on leave. You put them in your pockets, a little bit nonchalant. And resting them on your hips is not great either. There's also what's called the fig leaf, where you're holding them in front of yourself. Again, not a great idea. Here's what you want to do. You want your hands above your waist, above your belt line. And ideally, you want to use open-handed, double, symmetrical gestures with these hands. So anytime you can do what's called the pyramid, that's actually a power position. for converting people to persuade them. Open palms means I have no weapon, believe it or not. When we wave to people, it actually is symbolic of I have no weapon. So anytime you can do anything with double hands, that symmetry is something that really helps people buy into a speaker. It gives you credibility. And so what you do with your hands is critical, and you want to avoid the things that I mentioned, like the hands behind the back or in your pockets. You'd never want to fold your hands or fold them in front of you. It closes you off to the audience. So you want to keep them open palms, can be up like this. And also if you're raising hands, great idea to just ask for a show of hands. So just relax, get the bugs out before you start a speech, and just let your shoulders relax a little bit too. That's another one that lets that tension off. You want to use stories whenever possible, because stories engage. Again, they're painting visual word pictures, and they will remember a story where they will forget a fact. So one of the last things I want to leave you with is when you're giving a presentation, there's a key in that phrase that actually is the secret to all presentations. Giving. Now, when you give a gift to somebody, you're giving it to them, you're not taking. So that hopefully will trigger you to this important technology of giving a great speech. You are there to give something to them. Keep the focus, your attention on what gift you're going to give to them, that you're going to present to them. Because when you're giving and you're thinking about them and what you can convey that will benefit their lives, their workday, their world, when you're thinking about those things, what you're not thinking about is you. And what that does is two things. It holds their attention, because when you talk about me, you have my attention. And when you think about yourself, it makes you more nervous and self-conscious. So these are the keys to giving winning presentations. We hope that you will have more powerful presentations in the future, and we'll be putting more videos out in the future to go to advanced techniques beyond this. Have a great life.